Trent's passion for education reform is deep and informed by both experience and academic training. Trent began his career as a teacher, where the academic turnaround of his first class at Dublin High School surprised administrators so much that they made him the principal in order to lead the school in academic improvement and transformation. Trent's approach to school turnaround comes from the training and research he led during his doctorate studies in education policy, leadership, and instructional practice at Harvard University. Following Harvard, he saw an opportunity to build a team of experts, all exceptional educators, to lead this change in underperforming schools across the country. I'm excited to introduce to you today one of this generation's leading thinkers and practitioners of school turnaround, founder and CEO of EdDirection, Dr. Trent Kaufman.
Thank you, President Niederhauser, for the excellent work on an innovative bill in education that actually works. Hear me say that, an innovative bill in education that actually works. And also, I wanted to thank Senator Howard Stevenson, who spoke from this same podium last year, and he really set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. This is such an exciting time to be in education. We know what works, and I hope to share that with you today so you can implement something similar in your states. We know what works. First, just a quick intro on who we are, and then I want to share some stories from these turnaround schools so you can see how it works. EdDirection currently partners with over 10 foundations and think tanks, 100 school districts across the country, and over 1,000 schools. We have 250 team members. There we go. We have 250 team members that work all throughout the country. Today, however, I'm here to talk about Utah because of this innovative legislation from Senator Niederhauser. And it's a unique case where the policy is actually driving the improvement in schools, which is such an exciting proposition, I'm sure, for all of you. And I'm going to start my remarks today actually by talking about a few kids that mean a lot to me. I'm going to start with Simon. Simon's a 6th grade student. He's at Mana Academy, where his biggest challenge thus far in his academic career has been reading comprehension and spelling. Second, let me introduce you to Maria. Maria is a 3rd grade immigrant student who is struggling to learn English at Bonneville Elementary School in Ogden, Utah. And finally, let me introduce you to Faith, or third, I should say, let me introduce you to Faith. Faith is an 11th grader. She has Native American heritage, and she often wonders, is college for her? She attends Whitehorse High School in San Juan County, Utah. And last, let me introduce you to someone else that's special to me. This is Henry. This is actually my son. He's in the 4th grade at our local elementary school, and Henry's trying to figure out his math facts. He's got to learn his math facts to be able to stay on track. All of these kids have something in common. They require significant push from their teachers to stay on track. And I begin with these students today because I want you to take something away about my context. I'm in the work, partially because I'm a former teacher and principal and an education reformer, but also because I'm a dad. I also want to bring up these students so that we keep our eyes today and our hearts focused on what matters most. This is why we do what we do in education for these students. But I sympathize for you. I think you're in a quandary. We could call it a legislative quandary. Because of faces like these, you're compelled to fund education year after year after year. And many of you at higher and higher levels. You fund it year after year after year at higher and higher levels. But the outcomes don't budge. Let me repeat myself. You continue to fund education, but the results simply don't change. So I'm sure you ask yourself this question regularly. Are we getting the bang for our buck that our students deserve? And Is there a better way? Well, I've got good news for you. There is a real solution to the legislative quandary you've been in. And I'm here to show that collectively now, in our field, we do know what works. We know what works better in 2017 than we've ever known in education. And we know what evidence-based practices turn that knowledge actually into results. And I believe President Niederhauser's bill is just that bridge between what we know and those practices. So let me introduce you to a few of these schools. Let's start with Mana Academy. This is Simon's school. This is an elementary school in West Valley City, Utah. Anapesi Kaili is the principal, and Mana has over 400 students, 63% of whom are economically disadvantaged. And in terms of their academics, only 5% of their students prior to this legislation were proficient in English language arts. I'll call that ELA, the rest of my remarks, science, and only 10% of the students were proficient in math. Let me just clarify what this means. Of their 400 students, only 20 could read at grade level, okay? This school was failing. And I bet you don't have to look far from your state capitals to find schools similar to this one. But SB 235 has really made the difference for Mana Academy. Partially because SB 235 requires a rigorous root cause analysis to isolate the causes of underperformance. Let me explain real quick with a story from my own experience. My kids fight. I'm sure your kids don't, right? My kids fight. You can laugh at my kids for now. And I've been known to do something kind of dumb when my kids fight. I yell at them. I raise my voice. Okay, my kids fight as they get ready for school in the morning. I raise my voice. My kids fight in the back seat of the car. I raise my voice. My kids fight over who gets the best seat at dinner. I raise my voice. My wife, seeing all of this, recently helped me understand how dumb this really is. Dr. Kaufman, she said, in that voice that only a wife can use, "Do you think that our kids have a hearing problem? Is that why you keep yelling? Do you think they can't hear you? Because when your only answer to their fighting is yelling, it seems clear you think they have a hearing problem." So applied to schools, it's not so dissimilar. Before reacting with a solution, we must have a frank, comprehensive, and rigorous root cause analysis. And then and only then can we apply solutions to those issues. Let me just give you a couple quick examples of what this looks like in schools we've worked in. In Arizona, I know that we have a nice delegation from Arizona here. At a middle school in a suburb of Phoenix, we determined through our root cause analysis that a high number of students were entering 7th grade without having mastered what they were supposed to master in the 6th grade. This meant that if we can develop a solution to help better prepare 6th graders and help better onboard 7th graders, we could potentially see dramatic results in student learning. Now, in a high school in New York, our root cause analysis identified something different. Our root cause analysis with our high school in New York showed us that the percentage of teacher talk time versus student talk time was off. So students would turn off their engagement like a light switch. And there was just nothing for students to engage on. And at a elementary school in Georgia, we found that through our root cause analysis that teachers were acting like individual contractors. The only thing in common among these teachers at this school was the parking lot. So we knew we had to start by increasing a culture of collaboration, accountability, and focus on student learning. And you can really see this root cause analysis play out at Mana Academy. Our root cause analysis at Mana identified that the current curriculum expected teachers to be the sage on the stage, the only fountain of knowledge in the classroom. This approach just isn't motivating to kids. The thing is, we have to recognize that today's children just learn differently. They engage with content differently. They consume content differently. And so recognizing this, And based on our root cause analysis, we recommended instituting a new curriculum with different teaching methods. What we needed to do was shift the teacher from being a sage on the stage to become more of a guide on the side, helping students to develop proficiency by becoming masters of accessing and synthesizing information. In this case, a competency-based, mentorship-based teaching approach was exactly what was needed at Mana. And let me tell you, seeing the results at Mana is just so fun. We saw a 209% improvement in English language arts scores, an average of 118% improvement in proficiency across math, science, and English language arts. And remember, we're only 2/3 of the way through the support period. So can you imagine what this is going to look like after this year as well? And it was SB 235 that demanded that solutions for school turnaround be built from an understanding of the root causes of underperformance. And that's only until you understand those root causes do you apply solutions. There is no one-size-fits-all in SB 235. Do you know how excited Mana and the other schools are that they're being highlighted here today? Do you know how proud they are of their results? I'm sure they are going to be watching this video excitedly. And so let's show them a little love. How about we give it up for Mana Academy? The next school is Maria's. It's where Principal Janice Buki at Bonneville Elementary School has been working diligently to improve outcomes for over 500 students. Now, this community is challenged with urban blight. 100% of these students are economically disadvantaged. 60% of the student population represent ethnic minorities, 56 of whom are Hispanic. Many students are learning English as a second language, and until last year, faculty attrition stood at 70%. Now let me repeat this. What this means is 2 out of 3 teachers left the school every single year. This is the type of low morale that these failing schools deal with, which is why we need new and innovative approaches at turning around these failing schools. Academically, Bonneville, their performance was extremely low. Somewhere between 10 and 13% proficiency among all the subject areas. However, SB 235 in Utah has changed the game for the students at Bonneville because it requires the State Board of Education identify turnaround experts and use evidence-based practices in all aspects of the school. And we need to make sure that these techniques stick, and we do this by having every teacher receive meaningful coaching interactions with our team every single week. Let me say this again. Every teacher in these schools receive meaningful coaching every single week. And the technique we use is called deliberate practice. Some of you may be familiar with this concept. Deliberate practice is founded on research conducted by internationally recognized psychologist Anders Ericsson. And if you're looking for a holiday read, Peak is your book, okay? This is an amazing book. Deliberate practice is what separates the good from the truly great. And in education, separating the good from the great means from going from a good teacher to being a great teacher, using evidence-based techniques. So first, in order for a practice to qualify as deliberate practice, it needs to start with specific goals, to be clear about the outcomes that are desired. Second, the focus needs to be narrowed. We just can't boil the ocean, so why try? Third, you got to get out of your comfort zone. Change isn't easy. You've got to accept it and embrace it. And finally, the individual needs to receive consistent feedback. Now, this approach is really intuitive in sports. An example, I love to golf. I subscribe to the magazines. I've been to seminars and golf camps. And I've even done Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice to improve my game. Some of you might be in the same camp as me. And that's what Malcolm Gladwell said, right? 10,000 hours and you become an expert. Now, am I good? Maybe. Am I closing the gap on a truly exceptional golfer like Tiger Woods? Not even close. But I've put in the hours. I've put in a lot of hours. I have a lot of knowledge, but I still can't hold a candle to Tiger Woods. So why is this? Why is he so much better than me still to this day? Well, that's easy. He has decades of deliberate practice at the hands of a master teacher. his father, Earl. The same thing happens in education. Years of practice, attendance in seminars, workshops, engagement with the literature. All these things can yield good teachers, but not great teachers. Only deliberate practice can deliver truly great teachers, and great teachers are what is needed in our failing schools. Now, let's bring this back to Bonneville. We have a teacher at Bonneville who's taught for over 20 years. She worried that since you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that this technique wouldn't work with her. But she was willing to try because she loves kids. So we showed her some evidence-based techniques and started instituting deliberate practice. In one instance, we set a goal with her to ensure every student was mastering the topic she is teaching every 6 minutes. She was daunted by this. She wondered, with 32 students, how do I pull this off, Trent? How do I ensure that every student is demonstrating their mastery every 6 minutes? Well, first we showed her. We demonstrated the evidence-based technique in teaching the subject to her class. Second, we planned an upcoming lesson where we could use this active engagement strategy together with her, shoulder to shoulder. And then finally, we had her try it on her own every day for several weeks. And we were in the classroom with her, giving her continuous feedback and making improvements until she reached mastery. And now she wonders what she was so worried about in the first place. She's empowered and excited to learn the next evidence-based technique. Because of SB 235 and its focus on deliberate practice at Bonneville, the results are astounding. 243% improvement in English language arts, 193% average improvement across the other subjects, and now literally hundreds more students are proficient at this school, and we're only 2/3 of the way through this 3-year partnership. I can't wait to see the results after the 3rd year. So again, let's hear it for Bonneville Elementary School in Ogden, Utah. The last school is Faith's. It's White Horse High School, which is on the Navajo Reservation in San Juan County, Utah. Here, Kim Schaefer has been at the school for almost 20 years. White Horse has been the lowest performing school in Utah for 5 consecutive years, and in the bottom 3% for 20 years. The school is 98% Native American, 100% of the students are economically disadvantaged, and academically the situation was dire. Only 5% of the student body was proficient across all the subject areas. But SB 235 has really changed the game for White Horse students as well. White Horse has benefited from SB 235's provision to establish support for school leadership development. Senator Niederhauser described this a moment ago, and deep implementation. And I'm going to let Principal Kim Schaefer explain what this means herself. First, you'll hear from an Ed Direction coach, and then from Kim Schaefer, the principal at White Horse High.
When we first started working with White Horse High School, the first thing I did was meet with Kim, the principal. I was really impressed with her. She was really knowledgeable and passionate about working with the students. Probably the biggest challenge I saw was that we just need to work on how are we going to challenge these kids more. I think the teachers were working really hard, and I don't think that there was a school-wide focus and what is it we want to work on. In my work with teachers, I found that they always want to do what's best for kids, but a lot of times they don't know how.
Well, first of all, our school has tried a lot of things and have seen a lot of things not work. So we were really eager to have something that we could pick up and say, somebody else has already tested this and knows that it's going to work. I've been in this building almost 20 years, and I've never felt like all of the teachers and staff are on the same team until this year, and now we feel like we're all pulling in the same direction. We don't have somebody this way and somebody over here. If somebody starts to pull in another direction, it's really easy to get them back. Look, we're focusing on teaching and learning, and that's a really good feeling because that hasn't been in our building for a long time.
And this is part of the brilliance of SB 235. It's focused on leadership development and deep implementation. That's what makes the difference. One of my favorite quotes reads, "One of the challenges in education is that the pizzazz is around having a seemingly new idea, whereas the real work is in making it happen. While innovations tend to get the profile," here comes the good part, "the slog work of implementation is what makes the difference in the end. And this work gets much less attention." Change takes work, real work. It takes conflict. It takes being realistic sometimes. So in the schools we work with, how do we make sure that deliberate practice of these evidence-based techniques is fully implemented? Well, here's the secret. We focus on the few things that we know are right, and we do them consistently well across the school. This is deep implementation. Let me restate this. This focus on the few things that we know will make a difference, and then doing it consistently across the school, this is what cements lasting change. We know that results don't come on the first day, and sometimes they don't even come on the 100th. But by being in the classroom day after day, week after week, we ensure that the reps are done right, that there are enough reps, and that the teachers are consistent in giving their best to the students each and every day. This kind of high-touch coaching through deliberate practice is the only way to get the proverbial water to the end of the row. So what keeps us motivated in the long haul during this long, hard slog of implementation is knowing that it's worth it. Because we actually know that when evidence-based practices are implemented deeply, magic happens. Check out this chart. I'm going to explain it to you quickly. You can take the same evidence-based practice and apply it at two different schools. And the school that implements it well can get 12 times the impact. 12 times the impact. The same practice at two different schools can yield 12 times the impact at one school over the other school. And what's the difference? Well, it's the depth of implementation. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room who's ever done a diet. Guess what? Diets work when you follow them. Now, what did this mean at Whitehorse High School in San Juan County? Now remember, Whitehorse was one of the lowest performing schools in the state for 20 straight years. And today, Whitehorse is in the top 20% for growth among Title I schools in the state of Utah for the first time ever. They've moved out of focus and priority status for the first time in 20 years. Academically, the improvement's been incredible. They've achieved 263% improvement in math and averaged 160% improvement in the other subject areas. Now, like we've done for the other schools, let's hear it for the students at Whitehorse High School in San Juan County. And thanks to SB 235 for its focus on leadership and deep implementation. So how did all this happen? Well, we said it's Senator Niederhauser's SB 235. At last, as legislators, you have a creative piece of legislation that will allow you to invest in education and get commensurate results. Remember, there are three things that make it happen. First, we find the root cause, align around a common goal, and deeply implement evidence-based practices. Second, one of the great things about turnaround partners is that they sit in a non-evaluative position, and we bring a fresh set of eyes and engagement with the evidence-based literature. And the state sets definitive expectations, but only pays for performance that they see. So everyone is focused on student outcomes. And legislators and taxpayers don't get stuck paying more for less. As you consider sponsoring a bill like this back in your states, you may wonder how you can demonstrate to your fellow legislators or other constituents that this bill is worthwhile. Well, I really think the biggest evidence is in the results. 92% of schools have shown meaningful proficiency growth. 84% are no longer in the lowest performing 3%. Let me restate this. Only 2/3 of the year of the time has passed. We still have a whole academic year ahead of us, or I guess we're coming up on a half of an academic year ahead of us. And 84% of the schools are no longer in the turnaround category. That's success. And in terms of Senator Niederhauser's grading policy, 64% of the schools have improved at least one letter grade. Now, there's real urgency in this work, and I hope you appreciate my boldness in asking you a question, which is, are you the change that students in your state have been waiting for? I ask you that from my heart. Now, there are 3 ways you can get the ball rolling if your answer to this question is yes. First, those of you on the task force for education and workforce, you can vote for this to become model legislation through ALEC in the upcoming task force meeting here in a few minutes. And second, we've prepared an in-depth legislative packet for you that includes several things, including some frameworks for op-eds, frameworks for letters you could use, detailed information on how the turnaround process works, and then, of course, the model legislation itself. And finally, if you'd like a member of our team to come speak in your state, maybe it's to an education committee, maybe it's to a parent group, maybe it's to your fellow legislators, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. And 3 ways to get a hold of this packet. I want to make it really easy on you, as easy on you as humanly possible. You can either text your name and number to this cell phone number. You can leave your business card with us. I'll be over in this area afterwards here as lunch is starting. And we've got a QR code here. You can enter your information that way as well. Now, you can get this done. You can in the upcoming legislative session, and we're happy to help. We've got the framework, we've got the proof in the pudding, and we have the drive to see it through. And why? Well, it's because we know none of these students get their year back. We can't wait and think and plan for another decade. We have to make this happen. The stories of Simon, Maria, Faith, and Henry, these stories are compounded over and over again. And they're compounded all over the country, not just in Utah. So, my challenge for you is to be the change that students in your state have been waiting for. We've got to act now because these kids, they want it, they need it, they deserve it, and you now can provide the answer. Thank you so much for your time.